He doesn't clap when the crowd roars. He doesn't beg when it turns silent. While others tune their personalities to the noise of applause, he walks in a different rhythm, one that doesn't sync with validation, conformity, or collective chaos. And that alone makes him dangerous. Not because he hurts people, but because he's immune to their currency, which is no as attention. This man is a glitch in the tribal system, a silent rebellion in a loud world. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't mold himself for belonging. He doesn't care if you understand him. And for the crowd, that's heresy. In an era where visibility is treated like value and virality like virtue, the one who thrives in solitude becomes a threat to the entire performance. And when a man walks without needing the crowd doesn't just dislike him. They hate him. Let's break down 10 truths about why the Sigma male, the one who doesn't bow to the crowd, becomes its biggest target. 1. He's uncontrolled, and that makes him uncomfortable to watch. What they can't predict, they call a problem. The crowd likes patterns, predictable, programmable behavior, applause for applause, outrage for outrage. But the Sigma breaks the cycle. He doesn't play the role. He doesn't react. He doesn't perform. And that lack of response becomes a glitch in their feedback loop. The Sigma is dangerous not because he moves fast, but because he moves free. And freedom, to the crowd, feels like rejection. He's not part of the emotional economy. He doesn't buy in. He doesn't sell out. So they label him cold, arrogant, broken. Because if they admitted what he really was, self-sufficient, it would expose how dependent they are on being seen. 2. He forces the crowd to confront their own insecurities. His silence is louder than their screams. When the Sigma enters a room, he doesn't command it. He just disrupts it by being unshaken. His calm presence mocks the noise. His indifference threatens their addiction to approval. Most people operate like mirrors. They reflect back whatever earns love. But the Sigma is a wall, a still, silent surface that reflects nothing. And in that void, people see themselves clearly, unfiltered, insecure, craving. They project onto him, call him antisocial, call him damaged. But the truth, he just doesn't need what they need. And that makes them question everything they thought gave them value. 3. He can't be exiled because he was never inside. You can't cancel what never applied for membership. The crowd's power lies in its illusion of inclusion, an invitation that comes with strings, a celebration that can turn into condemnation at the first sign of noncompliance. But he never signed their contract. He never begged for their stage. He built his own. So when they try to exile him, they find there's no gate to lock. He was never in their temple, never bowed at their altar. He doesn't see exile as punishment. He sees it as clarity. This fractures their ego. They crafted a system where approval was a weapon, where rejection meant collapse. But with him, it's like throwing stones at a ghost, no sound, no reaction, no break. And that haunts them, because the one who walks alone by choice isn't a loser. He's a mirror that shows them what they are without applause. And nothing terrifies the crowd more than the man who doesn't flinch when they vanish. 4. He doesn't offer a persona to attack. They can't kill the mask if he never wore one. The crowd feeds on personas. They target the image you create, the curated, polished self you show for applause. But the Sigma doesn't play that game. He doesn't filter, posture, or decorate himself for palatability. What you see is what you get. No mask, no script. This makes him hard to manipulate. You can't cancel someone who won't plead. You can't shame someone who doesn't sell an image. In a world of avatars and performances, the real becomes a threat. Because truth, when you're hiding, feels like violence. 5. He walks away before the crowd gets to choose. They hate him most for leaving before they could reject him. Rejection is power in the social hierarchy. The crowd wants to decide who belongs and who doesn't. But the Sigma steals that weapon from them. He opts out before they ever cast a vote. He disappears from rooms they wanted him to beg to enter. He ignores circles they thought he'd crawl to be part of. And in doing so, he flips the script. They don't get to eject him. He walked. and nothing wounds fragile egos more than the man who didn't wait to be told he wasn't welcome. 6. He disrupts the emotional economy without saying a word. He doesn't sell emotion, he holds it, and that makes him priceless. The crowd trades in feelings, oversharing, outrage, virtue signaling, dopamine theater. Everyone's buying and selling relevance by emotional spectacle. But the Sigma operates on a different wavelength. He doesn't perform sadness. He doesn't flaunt joy. He just is. That presence unnerves people because it suggests a depth they can't access, a control they don't possess. While they scream to be seen, he simply exists unshaken, unfazed, uninterested. He doesn't spend his energy for claps, and the crowd hates what it can't consume. 7. He holds a mirror to their pretend individuality. When everyone's different the same way, the one who's truly different becomes a threat. Modern culture sells rebellion in a box, pre-packaged nonconformity, trends disguised as uniqueness. But the Sigma doesn't just step outside the mold. He never fit it to begin with. While others dye their hair, repost slogans, and call it resistance, he just detaches. He doesn't seek to stand out. He's not trying to be different. He's just himself. And that's what makes the crowd itch. Because his authenticity exposes their costume party, his neutrality exposes their fake fire. He's not an activist. He's not a nihilist. He's not a label. He's a ghost with substance. And they don't know how to fight what won't brand itself. 8. His power doesn't come from popularity. They control the stage. He controls the silence. The crowd thrives on numbers, followers, likes, mobs. But the Sigma is an island. His influence doesn't spread through noise. It seeps through presence. He doesn't shout to be heard. He doesn't sell advice. He leads by leaving. And that's lethal in a world built on attention. Because power that isn't bought can't be revoked. Power that doesn't ask for permission can't be stripped. He's the storm no one broadcasted, the gravity you felt before you looked, and that makes him dangerous. 9. He can't be gaslit, guilt-tripped, or groomed. They lost control when he stopped apologizing for breathing. The crowd runs on manipulation like it's oxygen. It thrives on guilt as currency, shame as control, and fear as its loudest weapon. You're expected to dance to the rhythm of groupthink, nod at every collective delusion, and smile while you shrink. But the Sigma? He doesn't play in their theater. He doesn't explain his detachment. He doesn't justify his silence. He doesn't soften his presence. He simply walks away from toxic praise, from orchestrated outrage, from the bait of false brotherhood. They launch every weapon: emotional blackmail, fake flattery, well-timed jabs wrapped in jokes. But he's Teflon. Nothing sticks, because he doesn't need the tribe to feel real. He doesn't need to be understood to be valid. He doesn't need the likes, the nods, the slow claps. And when someone stops being emotionally programmable, when he becomes unshakable, he stops being a pawn. He becomes a glitch, a virus, a threat. 10. He's living proof that solitude is not a curse. He turned isolation into armor. Now nothing gets through. Everything around us teaches that being alone is failure, that love, fame, noise equals worth. But the Sigma rewrote the formula. He embraced silence, turned solitude into sanctuary, and that's what truly drives the crowd mad. Because if he's right, their entire game collapses. The hustle, the show, the performance, all exposed as a distraction from the real fear, being alone with yourself. And he already did that and came back stronger. On a final note, he didn't need the crowd to clap, and that's why they booed. The Sigma male isn't anti-social. He's anti-dependence. He's not here to be adored. He's not here to be understood. He's here to be real, even if that means being hated for it. Because when a man doesn't need your applause, your approval, or your platform, you can't cancel him. You can only fear him. And that's exactly what they do.